Hi everyone. So today I'd just like to share with you some of my experiencing living abroad and to talk about how spending time living abroad is a great way to get the most out of life. So several years ago when I was in Mexico, I had the opportunity to live with a family that I had just met several hours ago. This was an interesting experience. It was only for one night, but I got to spend some time with my friends. I got to live in one of their bedrooms, use their bathroom, and have the opportunity to have breakfast with their community in the morning. And I thought this was really interesting. Now, that experience only lasted for one night. But as you can see in these pictures here, I have also been able to have different living abroad experiences with a couple different families. In the middle is my Costa Rican family I stayed with for a couple of weeks, and then I had another host family in Brazil, the bottom left-hand corner. These experiences have really just helped me to step outside my comfort zone. I've got to do different things like spend time in a car speaking in Portuguese with someone for an hour, which I should say I don't know the language very well, so that was interesting. I've gone to a Costa Rican party where I was the only one, aside from one other person, who spoke English. I've been caked by my Costa Rican father, you can see in the top left-hand picture, and really just a bunch of other things. So because I value these experiences so much, I'd like to talk about just how I think that it is really important to be able to spend time outside the country and how it's a great way to really get the most out of life. So, do this, I'll define what living abroad is, then talk about how living abroad can improve your life in a few different ways, and address reservations related to this topic. So the definition of living abroad that I've come up with for this presentation is living for at least 1 week with a family in another country. And this implies participating in cultural activities with the family. So living abroad can be thought of as staying, we think of that a lot of times as like living overseas for like a year, but because I got a lot of benefits from being there for just several weeks, that's what I'd like to focus on. And also know that living abroad doesn't mean staying in a hotel. It doesn't mean going out and doing your own thing while you're just residing in someone's house. It really means participating with that family in cultural activities. So the first thing that living abroad can do is increase your cultural awareness. So in this country, according to a study from the Pew Research Center, the percentage of foreign-born residents in the United States is 13.6% of the population, or 44.4 million residents. These people are often from East Asia, Latin America, Mexico, and Europe. And living abroad helps us to understand what these people experience when they live in our country. And it also helps us to increase our perspective on what it's like to be in their culture so that we can relate to these people better and really just have a common ground. One 12-day immersion study showed how 12 occupational therapists were able to spend time in Mexico. And when they did this, even though it was only for 12 days, and when they lived there, they really just learned to value different types of medicine better, how to relate the body, mind, and soul together, and they actually ended up changing practices in their life. And this was only a 12-day immersion. So you can see that living abroad can help increase our cultural awareness in this way. Another interesting thing that living abroad can do is increase our job performance. So in a study by Dragoni et al. In 2014, researchers wanted to know the impact of cultural distance and global work on leaders' strategic thinking competency. So cultural distance is essentially how different a culture is from your own. Global work experience is a variety of different types of working outside the country, and strategic thinking competency was defined as the knowledge, skills, and abilities leaders need to formulate value-created strategic goals and strategies. So in this study, the researchers found that the more cultural distance and global work experience a leader experienced, so in other words, the more time they spent in different types of countries and different types of work, the greater the strategic thinking competency. So we can see that living abroad has the potential to even help us to think and work better. Living abroad also challenges us to live outside our comfort zone. It can increase confidence at challenging situations, enable us to have long-lasting memories, and creates humor. You can see on the right side here, this is a bathroom that I got to use when I was in Costa Rica. It was definitely awkward at first. Didn't really know what to do or even how to flush the toilet because it was basically just a bin of water. But using these types of situations and realizing they're really not as bad as you might think has helped me in different situations at work where I didn't know what to do, and I was able to reflect on these situations, not just ones involving toilets, but a variety of them. And they're really humorous, and it's fun making, I would say, cultural mistakes, as long as they're not super offensive, that you can reflect back on later and just laugh about. So really, living abroad can help increase your ability to live outside your comfort zone. So some reservations. Some of you might think that living abroad is too expensive, a waste of time, or even unsafe. So to address the first reservation, is it too expensive? There's actually a group of travelers online who created a page called Out of Your Comfort Zone, and they listed several ways to live abroad inexpensively. So you can actually live abroad inexpensively by volunteering. You can volunteer with the United Nations and stay for as little as a few weeks to several months or years even, and they would actually pay you for this. You can do house sitting abroad, which I thought was interesting. You can live as a student in a variety of different things. A waste of time. Curtis S. Chin, in an article on the New York Times, discusses how he basically thought that investing time abroad is really not the wisest thing to do, and we could be putting money into our own economy. But as we can see, there's a variety of different things that living abroad does besides even what I talked about in this short presentation. So you have to be smart where you spend your money and what you invest in. But I would have to say that living abroad is certainly not a waste of time. Is living abroad unsafe? So just like with any other activity, there's a risk involved. And if you live abroad and you don't take precautions and think about your own health and safety, obviously that's a problem. I know we think of the coronavirus now, and I definitely would not advise traveling or living abroad at this time, but when that's not an issue anymore, in general, just be smart. You can get to know your host family before you live with them. Check up on the organization you're working with. Get to know the area you're going to be living in. Get travel insurance, a bunch of things. So really, it just revolves around being smart and using your head. So to summarize, I was able to talk about just how I value having spent time living abroad, and just to show you that it really helps to increase our cultural awareness, the people around us, and it helps our job performance, and it can really just give us the opportunity to live outside of our comfort zone and then to bring that experience back to our daily lives at home. And I'd really just like to encourage you guys to look into ways to do this. Like I said, you might not want to do it now with the coronavirus, but when the time comes that we can again, use some of the resources that I talked about in the previous slide. You can just do a quick Google how to live abroad cheaply, and you can do that with your family, by yourself, a number of different ways. So I know that my time living abroad was life-changing, and I'd really love for you just to see those effects in your life as well. Thank you.